Hi everyone, it's Shelby here. Welcome back to A Little Literary Love. Glad you're all here. And today, actually, we're going to be doing another episode of my Treats and Tomes series. So in this one, we're actually going to be talking about Tessa Bailey's Hot and Hammered series. I read all three of the books in this series. And then I'm also going to make some empanadas with some chimichurri sauce. So if you're interested, let's hop right into it. So let's first, how I'm going to format this video. First, I'm just going to kind of do an introduction, tell you about the Hot and Hammered series by Tessa Bailey, about what all three of the books are kind of about. Then we'll get into the recipe and trying out the food that I'm going to make, which is going to be empanadas, which I'm pretty excited about. And then we'll get into, at the end, kind of my thoughts on the whole series, on individually for each of the books, and then overall as a series. So first of all, so there's three books in the series, which I own all three. So we have the first one, just Fix Her Up. Then we have Love Her or Lose Her. And then we have Tools of Engagement. So Fix Her Up, I think, came out like a couple of years ago. And then this last one came out, I think last year was when this one came out. And honestly, I read the first one when it first came out. And then I just, within like the past couple weeks, finished the series. But yeah, so this, like I said, is in a Hot and Hammered is what the series title is called. And if you can't tell, all of the titles of the books are kind of based off of like HGTV, like fixing homes kind of TV shows, which I think is kind of fun. So the whole series basically centers around, each of the books are about the founding members of this Just Us League, which gets formed in the first book, so I'll get into that in a second. But it's centered around basically this family that in this town, they fix up homes, kind of like what you see on HGTV, where like these people like buy like kind of rundown looking homes, the terrible homes. They buy them for like cheaper, pretty cheap price because they're kind of crappy looking. And then they do renovations on them and stage them and sell them at a lot higher price. So it's about this family that does it. So the first one is actually about like the family does this business. There's a brother and a sister and then the younger sister. So these three siblings, but the younger sister isn't a part of this family company business or whatnot. She's kind of seen kind of just like the younger sibling, goofy, goofball, nobody takes her seriously, whatever. So Georgie is her name. And so Georgie actually has a clown business because she likes being like silly, and she's making money off of being like a clown at kids' birthday parties. So this is about her romance with actually her older brother's best friend, who is Travis. So Travis used to be a professional baseball player, but then he got injured and now he can no longer play baseball. So he's come back to town and he's kind of feeling like, woe is me, what am I gonna do with my life? You know, baseball was his whole entire life. He doesn't really know what to do. So Georgie comes in, is trying to like motivate him to like get up because he's being a bum. And then he gets an opportunity to potentially be like a news sportscaster, somebody that I'm not 100% sure what the term is, but somebody that like commentates on like sports like games. So that job opportunity arises, but he's kind of known as being like a player and sleeping with lots of women. And the baseball team, I think it's a baseball team or like the sports station or whatever that's wanting to hire him is known as being like a family friendly type of place. So they want him to kind of show that he can be like family friendly kind of oriented. So they're both wanting to try to have people see them in more of like a serious light. So they decide to get together and fake date, and just because they think that dating each other, especially since you know, Travis hasn't ever been in any kind of long-term committed relationship. He's always just had girls kind of come and go. If he's seen with being somebody in a long-term kind of committed relationship, then he might kind of come across as more of a serious guy, that he's not like a player, and that this family-oriented, family-friendly kind of place might actually hire him. And then also, by Georgie dating Travis, she's hoping that her family will take her a little bit more seriously, that, hey, she's not actually like a teenager, because I think she's like 23 or something, like she's an adult and she wants to be seen as adult. So she hopes that dating this guy who's older than her, it'll help her to kind of look more serious to her family. So that's what this book is. And this is where the Just Us League gets formed. This is formed by Georgie, Rosie, who's in the second one, and Bethany, who is Georgie's older sister. They get together because they're kind of tired of the men in their lives telling them what to do and kind of dictating their lives. And it's basically just, it kind of like explodes. Like, it's just the three of them for the most part in this one, and then word kind of gets out to the rest of the women in the town, and they all want to like join in on these like meetings that they're having, and it's a lot of fun. And mostly it's just a kind of like meeting place for all these women to get together and basically support one another and congratulate each other for accomplishments, even no matter how small the accomplishments are. So yeah. Anyway, so the second book, Love Her or Lose Her, is about Rosie, who isn't a part of this family, but she is best friends with Georgie and Bethany. And like I said, she is a founding member of the Just Us League. So this is about her and her husband, Dominic. This is a marriage in trouble type of romance. Dominic is a veteran. He was, I don't know if he went to like Iraq, or he was in the military, and when he came back, he was kind of different. So we're coming into this book, Rosie and Dominic don't really ever talk to each other. Their marriage is kind of going down the drain. They do still have a lot of like sexual chemistry and sexual tension between each other, and when it gets built up a lot, then they like kind of explode and they have like really great sex. But again, they don't ever talk to each other. So one day Rosie is at work and she has a really bad day at work, and just a whole lot of things are happening, and she finally just gets fed up and she tells Dominic that she's leaving him and she doesn't want to be in the marriage with him anymore. So this is kind of a wake-up call for Dominic. He honestly, from his point of view, he didn't really 100% realize how much their marriage was in trouble. He thought everything was doing okay, you know, things could be a little bit better, but he's been like working towards getting them a better house, and all these different things, and he didn't realize how upset and how unhappy Rosie really was. So they decide, you know, he wants to try to do everything to keep their marriage together because he's still in love with Rosie, and he thinks that Rosie's still in love with her, or in love with him. And they decide to go to marriage counseling. So they go to marriage counseling to try to repair their marriage and still stay married to each other. So that's this one. And then Tools of Engagement is the last one. This is about Bethany. So she is the older sister of Georgie, and they still have an older brother, but he's already married. So in this one, she's part of the business, the family business, where they, you know, flip houses, but her role is only with like the staging aspect of it, with buying, you know, pretty like furniture and making their houses look pretty. But she wants to be involved more in the business with the, you know, finding the homes and tearing them down and having a say in the whole overall design and layout of the home, not just the staging aspect of it. And her older brother is like, no, you're not going to do that. So she decides she's going to quit the family business, do her own business, and go off on her own and try this by herself, which of course her brother doesn't like this. And then these like almost like an HGTV-esque people come into the town and hear about her and her brother like kind of feuding and having these like rival flipping houses businesses, and they decide they're gonna make a short kind of reality TV show about it. And they're going to, so each of them has picked a house that they're gonna flip, and they have like 2.5 weeks, I think, to flip their houses, and then they're gonna choose like a winner, and whoever wins, so like if Bethany wins, she gets to continue her own flipping houses and whatnot, but if her brother wins, then she has to stop flipping houses and go back to her family's company. So in the meantime, there's also a romance with this. So Wes is the hero of this story. He actually works for Bethany's brother in flipping houses, but he has like a huge crush on Bethany when he first came into town. But they kind of have this like enemies to lovers, hate to love kind of thing going on, at least on Bethany's part, because she does not like Wes whatsoever. Mostly because he kind of calls her out on her crap, but that's just me. So when she leaves and is like, I'm gonna do my own thing, he's like, well, I'm gonna go with her and I'm gonna help her out, even though at first she doesn't really like that, but he's kind of like, hey, you can't do this by yourself, you need all the help you can get if you want to win, so I'm gonna help you. And in the process of that, they start to form like a romance. So there's the quick version of rundown of what all of those books are about. So like I said, I planned for this episode to make beef empanadas and chimichurri sauce. So these are like Argentinian type foods, and I wanted to do this because Rosie from this one, her background, her mother is Argentinian, and I think her father's African American. I could be wrong on that, but she, through all of this whole series, she's always making food. In the first book, when they start to get together, she makes like empanadas, and then once the Just Us League kind of gets going and keeps having more members and actual like meetings, she makes all the food for those meetings, and her ultimate goal is to actually open her own restaurant with her mother's Argentinian roots, with Argentinian type foods at this restaurant. So that's basically part of the reason why she decides to leave Dominic in this one, because she's just been kind of putting this dream to the side and hasn't been really doing anything to get to her goals of opening her own restaurant. So she kind of plays a role with those foods all throughout the series. Not as much, honestly, in the last one. She's only there like in snippets, like a little bit, but still, for the most part, that's playing throughout the whole book. So I will probably leave the recipes. I have a couple, two different websites that I found these recipes for, one for the empanadas and one for the chimichurri sauce, and I'll probably leave those either down below or I'll link them down below in the description box. But anyway, so we're gonna get into the recipe and make some yummy food. Alrighty, so for these empanadas, so we first have to make the dough to make that the like beefy part's going to go into. So I have all my ingredients to make the dough. So it's flour, which I've already sifted, some butter that I've already cubed up. So this is going to be 1 stick of butter that's cubed up cold, 1 egg, some salt, vinegar, and milk, and then also some cold water, which I'll get in a second. Okay, so the first thing it says to do is put the egg and 2 tablespoons of milk and 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt in a bowl and whisk it. So I'm gonna do that now. So it's all mixed together. And then I think we just set this aside for now. Okay, sorry about the really like super close angle. It's hard. I have very little counter space and it's hard to film. But, so this recipe calls for making the dough using a food processor. So I already have the flour and salt in my food processor. If you don't have a food processor at home, you could always do this the old school way and take a fork and mix it up. The only thing that makes it easier with the food processor is when you add the cold butter to it. It's gonna pulse it and make it like crumbly. But you can absolutely do that with a fork. It just takes a little bit longer. So, like I said, the angle is super close. You're really close up on my food processor. But I'm just gonna put the top on this, and it says just to pulse this for like just a second, just to mix the flour and the salt together. So that's what I'm gonna do. That's it. Okay, I think it might just be easier for me to just like hold this. Yeah. Anyway, so the next step, I have that kind of pulsed together, and then we're gonna take my butter back here and pour the butter in. If it'll come out of the bowl I have it in. There, okay. Butter is in there. We're gonna put the top back on. Close it. And we're just gonna pulse it until it resembles breadcrumbs. That looks pretty breadcrumby to me. Okay, now it says just to add all the wet ingredients to it. So the egg mixture, and then it says a tablespoon of vinegar, and then I'm gonna get the cold water and put in there. Okay, and adding in the ice cold water, and then we're just going to pulse this again and mix it up. Okay, so now it's time to make the filling. So I have all my ingredients laid out. So we have olive oil, which we're going to use in the pan to cook it. We have my ground beef, which I always get lean ground beef. It doesn't actually say if you need to do lean or whatever, but this is just a habit of mine that I just always get lean ground beef. And then it says 1 small yellow onion diced. I decided to get, I saw that my Walmart now carries frozen diced chopped onions. So I'm gonna use this instead because I'm lazy and I hate chopping onions. So then there's 3 hard-boiled eggs chopped up. This is about 1/4 of a cup of chopped up green olives, and then 1/4 of a cup of chopped up green onions. And then this is my spice mixture, which is 2 teaspoons of paprika, 2 teaspoons of chili powder, 1 teaspoon of oregano, and 1.5 teaspoons of ground cumin. So let's get cooking this. Okay, so it says to turn the skillet on to medium-high heat, and then I'm just gonna add some olive oil, which it says to use, I think 2 tablespoons. Yeah, 2 tablespoons of olive oil. I just eyeball it. And I'm just dumping my onion in. I'll just get this a quick stir so it can cook. So the recipe says to cook this for about 6 to 8 minutes until the onions are soft. But mine's probably, I'm not going to cook it probably the whole 6 to 8 minutes, since this was a thawed bag of the frozen onions. So they're already pretty soft, but I would still like them to kind of cook a little bit. And then I'm going to add the meat. So the recipe says to mix the meat and the spices together before adding it to the pan. But I'm not going to do that because I don't want to mess up another bowl. I'm just going to like mix it on here when I put it all in. So that's my plan. I tend to go off of recipes lately just because I'm like, I don't want to do that. Which is kind of nice about like cooking. You don't have to strictly follow a recipe. You honestly can just do what you want. Try stuff out. I mean, within reason. But yeah, now it's starting to cook. Okay, now I'm going to add the meat. That's going to look kind of gross coming out of this package, but that's fine. I'm just going to kind of chop this up so it can get cooked. I'm also going to add the spices. And kind of mix it with the onions. Okay. Then it also says to turn this down to medium to cook the meat. But yeah, I'm just gonna it says you're supposed to like stir it frequently, but I'm just kind of like stirring and mixing and pushing so I don't have like huge like beef clumps. It smells really good. I'm also going to go ahead and add some pepper. That's just me. It says add salt and pepper to your taste. So if you don't want to add pepper, you don't have to. If you want to add more salt, you can. I'm not 100% sure if I want to add more salt. Because like I said, we're also going to add a little bit of the green olives, and green olives are pretty salty. Okay, so this looks like it's pretty well cooked. So now it says to turn off of the stove, we'll turn off the heat. And we're gonna mix in the green olives. And the eggs. And then the green onions. I'm going to get this all mixed in, and then I'm going to take this off of this hot burner so it totally stops cooking. And then we'll get to the next part of the recipe. Okay, so now it says to preheat your oven to 425. So I'll let that preheat. So now it's been a little over an hour and my dough is ready. And I have a floured work surface, and it says, okay, so it says to cut in half. So I have this big, nice, like, I think this is actually for, it's like pizza, so I mean it's for cutting big things of dough. I'm gonna set this other half to the side, and then I'm just gonna kind of smush it, and we just roll it out. It says to roll it to like an 1/8 inch. Which is always really hard for me to tell. I mean, I guess if you really want to get like technical, I could get out like a ruler. But I'm just gonna eyeball it. I don't know. That looks good to me. So, and then you're supposed to use like a circular cookie cutter, which I don't have any circle cookie cutters. So I'm just gonna use my daughter's like bowl and use that to make the cutouts. I mean, it kind of worked. There, we have a nice, oh, camera's over here. We have a nice like circle. So it says to cut out circles until all the dough is gone. Okay, so I managed to make about 12 of these, and now I'm gonna start filling them with dough. And I already have a baking sheet prepared with a Silpat. You can also prepare it with like parchment paper. So I'm gonna make those. Okay, so it says you just dollop some on here. Just kind of like fold it over. I may have stuffed this one too much. There we go. And then you take like a fork to crimp the edges like that. Okay, so they go on the baking sheet, and then I have my egg wash, which is just 1 egg whisked up. Then I'm gonna take this like brushy thing that I have and brush the top of it with the egg wash. Like that. Okay, so I'm gonna make the rest of these empanadas, and I'll get back to you when we put it in the oven. Okay, so I have this pan full. It only fit 8. I've got some more, so I'll do 1 batch and then I'll do the other one, which you can see this one. I think I stuffed a bit too much, but that's okay. This one won't go in it like any pictures. This one will just be for me, for tasting, because that's still gonna taste pretty yummy. But yeah, so I'm just going to put these in the oven, and they need to cook for 17 to 20 minutes is what the recipe says. So I will see you when all these are done. Okay, so while my empanadas are cooking, I'm actually gonna make a chimichurri sauce to go with it to kind of, I don't know, I was looking at recipes and I think this one is Argentinian. So it's basically just oregano, parsley, I have a thing of minced garlic, white vinegar, olive oil, crushed red pepper, and then salt and pepper to taste. So all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna chop these up and then kind of mix these 3 together and then add the stuff. Okay, so I have my chopped up oregano and parsley and chopped up garlic here in a bowl, and now I'm just gonna add 1/3 cup of olive oil, and then my vinegar, which it says to do 2 tablespoons. And then it has half a teaspoon of sea salt, which I'm probably just going to use regular salt. I think I have sea salt, but I'm not 100% sure where it's at. Then I have 1/4 teaspoon of red pepper flakes. We'll do some pepper. It says half a teaspoon of salt. Add all of that. And then I'm going to take my fork and just kind of mix this up. So this, it says it's basically like a Argentinian, I guess Latin American version of pesto. So there we go. Chimichurri. And I'll have this with the empanadas. So here are my empanadas out of the oven. You can see they kind of spilled out a few places a little bit. Or like this one wasn't like super close to well all the way. But overall they look really good and I can't wait to taste them. Okay, now we're gonna try this. I'm really hungry. That was a really big bite. They're really good. I'm gonna try it in without the chimichurri on it because I think it's the chimichurri. It tastes really salty, which I put the amount of salt that the recipe said to put in it, and I don't. Maybe I shouldn't have done that because I'm not super big on salt. That's definitely the chimichurri sauce. It's just a bit too salty. It may just be, if I can not talk and eat at the same time. It may just be my taste buds because I'm not super into like salt. I usually don't. I honestly really don't do a whole lot of cooking with salt. I don't use it too much. I do love like salty snacks like Cheez-Its and chips and things that, you know, I need to cut back on eating. But so those are really salty, but I don't know, this was just, I think it just had a little bit too much salt. Otherwise though, the chimichurri was pretty good. Like I said, it's kind of like a Latin Argentinian version of pesto. So if you like pesto, you honestly would like this. But overall, like just the empanada itself is really good. It's very meaty. I wasn't 100% sure how I would feel about the hard-boiled eggs, which is kind of weird. But I'm not hating it. I like it. But yeah, it's just like a meat pocket. And then I also wasn't sure how I'd feel about the green olives because I'm not a fan of green olives, but I honestly can't really tell that they're there. So I'm also happy with that. So I'm gonna finish eating this and then we'll get into discussion talking about the series. So okie dokie. So last part of this video is we're going to talk about my thoughts on this series. So overall, I really liked this series. Honestly, I think the first one, Fixer Up, is probably my favorite. I've given this 5 stars. I read this when it first came out and I gave it 5 stars, and I recently reread it just this like past week and I again gave it 5 stars. I love this one so much. And then they kind of like de-escalate from there. So the third one I gave 4 stars, and then I'm still up in the air on how many stars I want to give this one. I might do 3.5 or 4. I'm going back and forth on what I want to do, but it's somewhere around there. 3.5 to 4 is kind of my rating for this one. So let's run through for each of them. This one, why I gave it 5 stars and why it's amazing is mostly because Georgie, I love Georgie's character so much. She's so funny, and I just love that she wants to be taken seriously, but also like she has such a big heart and she cares about Travis so much. She's always had a crush on Travis, even when she was younger and her older brother and him were younger and like playing in the backyard together. She's always had a crush on him. And like I said, she's wanting everybody to see her more seriously. I love how Travis starts to like see her as an adult, because at first he's like, oh, she's just an annoying kid sister, basically how everybody else sees her. And then she ends up going and getting some more, like all of her clothes are basically like hand-me-downs or from like a thrift store, and she decides to actually go to like a like boutique like and buy some like actual like new clothes, and she has a salesperson like help her out because she wants to look more like an adult. And so once she gets these clothes, she's in more like form-fitting attire and like dresses and skirts, and Travis like takes notice of her and he's like, I shouldn't be having these thoughts because that's my best friend's little sister. And then they start having these like a fling, because then, you know, they have like the fake dating kind of thing, and it's so cute. This also fits the like grumpy one, sunshine one trope if you're into that, because Georgie is definitely the sunshine one and Travis is definitely a grumpy curmudgeon-y guy. But I love how much she like gets Travis to open up, and their love story is so cute. Also, if you haven't ever read Tessa Bailey, so all of these books are pretty steamy. They're honestly some of the steamiest books that I've read in like traditionally published romances. So I read a lot of indie romances and they get a lot steamier than what this does. But like I said, most of the like traditionally published romances don't get as steamy as this does. So if you're not somebody that really likes a ton of steam, you may not like that, but if you do like steam in your romances, you're gonna love this. Travis, and honestly all of the heroes in this series are some like dirty talking men. Like seriously, it's so good. So I don't know, I just can't say enough good things about this one. I love it so much, and I'm probably gonna keep rereading it just because it's one of those books that it's such a feel-good book. There's not really any kind of like not too much like hard hitting kind of stuff. It's just really light and fluffy and romantic and sweet and sexy, and I just love this. So that's all I'm going to say about this one because I love it so much, and I don't know how many times I can say that I love it. This one, Love Her or Lose Her, I know a lot of people don't really care for this one as much. I gave this 4 stars. I really appreciated this book and I was really surprised by that. I didn't think I was really gonna like this. I'm not too much of a fan of like marriage and trouble, like second chance type of romances. That's just not really what I gravitate towards. But I really like this one. So I can understand why people don't really like this one as much. And the reason is mostly because of Dominic and his character. He is definitely an alpha type of character. He displays some aspects of like toxic masculinity, but I can't really blame him for that because that's just kind of how he grew up. That's what he was exposed to with his family and his parents, with his dad. That's kind of what he saw growing up, is his dad was the breadwinner of the family, and he was supposed to be the one that supported the family and made big decisions for the family, and that's just how it's always been. He hasn't really been exposed to anything else, so I can't really blame his character for not being more open, which he does throughout this book, you know, with character development, get a little bit better and more understanding with like Rosie and what she's wanting. But just keep that in mind. I also liked having that in this book just because I know as a society and with like romance books that people are honestly really down on these type of characters, and they're wanting, you know, male characters to not display some of those aspects, but I liked having it in this because I'm like, it's still going on. I just felt like he was more real, if that makes sense. I did really also like this because I did like that they did go to marriage counseling and work through their problems. They did talk about the different like love languages, which I liked that this book talked about. So Rosie is somebody that she expresses her love and wants love in return through like words, is how she likes, you know, her love, or like use love. I'm not the best at explaining it. But then Dominic is more of, he expresses his love and wants love returned to him through like actions. So part of why their marriage wasn't working is because they didn't talk to each other. So that, I feel like, is why I didn't really give this a 5-star, because it was just really frustrating to me that they weren't talking to each other. And honestly, all of their problems would have been solved had they actually talked to each other. Had Rosie said, hey, I'm not happy in our marriage, this is what would actually make me happy. Or Dominic, he was expressing his love through doing all these kind acts for Rosie. He like set a bunch of money aside and worked extra so he actually bought them a nicer house. But he didn't want to like show Rosie yet, or he like heats up her car in the mornings, or sets out her like jacket so if he knows it's going to be a little bit colder that day. Or at her work, I think she works at like a mall maybe, he pays the security guard a little bit extra to pay more attention to his wife when she's leaving work, to make sure that she gets in her car and she leaves okay. So he's doing all these extra things, which is really sweet. But Rosie has absolutely no idea about any of this because he doesn't tell her. He doesn't say that he's doing all these things for her, which is so frustrating. But they do go to marriage counseling and they do work through their problems. And again, Dominic has a filthy mouth and they have some pretty steamy sex scenes. And then all does work out for the better. All of these stories have AGAs, in case you're wondering. And Rosie does get her restaurant at the end of it. And like, I don't know if it's actually at the end of it. It's like in the epilogue. Sorry if that's a spoiler, but so I don't know if that's like a few years down the road or if it actually is at the end of this one. I don't know. And then the last one, Tools of Engagement, about Bethany. So again, like I said, I'm honestly feeling more like 3.5 stars, mostly because Bethany was just like driving me insane. I could not stand her character because Bethany is a perfectionist and she is a control freak, which I don't really like people that are like that. And I don't really like my characters who are like that. So I don't know if that's more of just like a me thing, that I just don't care for this type of character, but I was just very frustrated by her because, and not to be like, if you are a perfectionist, like I don't want to be like, I don't like you. No, it's just, how do I want to put this? So I tend to have perfectionist tendencies, especially when I was going through like college and school, and certain times in my life, I have definitely been a perfectionist, but I kind of realized that being that way was not making me happy. It honestly only just caused more stress on my life, and the end result of whatever I was doing wasn't that satisfying because I had so much of that stress going through it. So I've kind of just let go. I try not to let things bother me, and I'm honestly kind of not really much of a perfectionist anymore. There's certain times that I try to, but I just don't let it get to me because I'm just a happier person not being that way, which I feel like honestly Bethany would have been a happier person. So she doesn't let anybody know that she stresses out about things. Like I said, she's a perfectionist. She wants everything to be perfect, mostly because she's so worried about what other people think of her, that people will think down on her and they will see all of her flaws, and she doesn't want that to happen. So she spends so much of her time, like literally everything she does, she spends ungodly amounts of time doing and thinking about, just because, like, even just getting dressed in the morning, she says it takes her so long to get dressed because she's mentally going through like a checklist in her head of every single person that she will see that day, and then kind of coordinates her outfit based on that because she wants to put off her persona for those people that she's going to see, which is just insane. Like, it's insane that she's thinking about what other people think about her. So in the other books, like when they just start forming like the Just Us League, she says like her boyfriend, I think, cheated on her. And she says that she's taking a hiatus from dating men. But honestly, the only reason that all these guys leave her, or she leaves them, is because, again, she's putting off this persona for what she thinks they want to see from her, or the like personality that she thinks that they want. So then when they start getting a little bit more serious and they start getting close to her, she is the one that kind of backs off of the relationship, or kind of leaves them dry, or gets on cold, because she's afraid that if they get too close to her, they'll actually see her for who she actually is, and they won't like her, and that they will see all of her flaws that she's constantly thinking about. So that's the biggest reason why this one is a lower rating, because I found her personality to be exhausting, and I just wanted to like shake her, because I was like, you're amazing how you are. If you would just let people see the true you, like, everything would be so much better for you. You would be so much less stressed and anxious. And there's a certain time where she like nearly has a panic attack at Georgie's wedding. So Georgie and Travis actually get married in this one. Like, she's like in the throes of like hyperventilating, and Wes like kind of helps her out. And I was just like, girl, like, come on. So I did really like this one because I loved Wes's character. He is from Texas. He used to be a bull rider, and he is in this town because his half sister just kind of was like, hey, I need you to take my daughter, and I'm gonna go off and do my own thing and figure some things out. So it kind of has like a single parent trope, even though he's not his niece's parent, but he is taking care of her by himself. And he is like totally new to being around kids, but you know, he's not going to just abandon his niece. So him and his half sister were actually in the foster care system. So he, like I said, he doesn't want to abandon her, and he ends up trying to seek like guardianship for her because her mom, his sister, has the past of like drug abuse. So and then I think she's with like some guy. I don't know if she's married or it's her boyfriend, something. They're having some problems. So she needs to just like, she's tired of being a mom, and she ends up going and trying to like get her life together, and eventually I think she ends up going to like rehab too, which I mean, good for her, so she can be a better mom. But yeah, so Wes, like I said, loves Bethany. He thinks she is the most gorgeous person, and he honestly can, even from the beginning, he can kind of start to see some of her like tics, and that she's not really the person that she shows to everybody, that she does have these like problems. And so, like I said, Bethany doesn't really like Wes, mostly because he says things to make her mad, because he knows that can distract her from some of her like spiraling thoughts when she starts to go down a rabbit hole of like, if people see something on her and they like make a face, then she's like, oh my god, they don't like me, and like it just goes off from there. So he already like automatically kind of like could see some of that, and he knew that he could distract her from some of those thoughts by saying things that made her angry, which I thought was really cute and really smart of him. And they do, so I wasn't gonna give this isn't one where I like dislike the book, because it does have character development. Bethany does have a lot of character development. There's a lot of stuff that she has to work through, but eventually she gets to a point where she starts to not like let things bother her, and she just gets to a better place by the end of this book. And part of it was she had to do it herself, but I think Wes had a big part of like helping her get there, so I really like that. I did also like the aspects with his niece. I think her name's Laura. I think her name's Laura. Like her interactions with Wes, and then they have some little bits where like Bethany helps him out, or Bethany is the one like watching Laura, and little bits with them, because Laura thinks Bethany looks like Elsa from Frozen. So I thought all of that was really cute. Another thing that I wish was done a little bit better, or at least I just kind of wanted more of, is the characters from the other books. Georgie was in this one a little bit more, because I mean, Georgie is Bethany's little sister, and like I said, Travis and Georgie get married in this one, so that was really cute. But I really missed Rosie and Dominic. Rosie and Dominic were in this like just the littlest bit, and I kind of wanted a little bit more from those characters. This did also have an epilogue where it had sort of an epilogue for all of them from all of the 3 books. It was mostly like an epilogue for Bethany and Wes, but you do get to see them wanting to start like growing their families, and it was really cute. So those are the thoughts, all of my thoughts on this whole book series. Overall, I honestly, like, if I had to rate the series as a whole, I feel like I'm gonna sneeze. Let's see. If I had to rate the series as a whole, I would probably give it like 4 stars, 4.5 stars, somewhere around there. I really like this series. This Fixer Up was my first introduction to Tessa Bailey. I have read a few other of her books since then, and I really like Tessa Bailey's writing style. A lot of her books have that kind of quirkiness to them. There's a lot of funny moments, but there's also a lot of heart to them, and they're also pretty steamy. So I like that, because I'm somebody that I like more steam in my romance books. That's just me. So I really enjoy these a lot. I do also really like the Just Us League. I love that it's such a, like, women empowering other women. I loved that. So part of their, like, meetings, when it talks about their meetings, they always do, like, I don't remember what it's like, what was, I think they're weekly meetings, and they kind of say what was the best part about your week and what was the worst part about your week. So no matter how small, even if it's just like, you know, little things, whatever was really good, what happened to them that was really good, they write it up on like a whiteboard and they like congratulate each other and cheer each other on. And I just love that. I love seeing books where there isn't like fighting amongst women or women tearing each other down. It was truly all these women are supporting each other. I'm honestly like starting to tear up talking about this because I just love it so much. And I just wish there was more books were like that. And I just, in general, like in society, I wish people were more like that. I don't really like seeing women tearing each other down. That's just not me. So I loved that this was part of this book, celebrating women and like celebrating their accomplishments, no matter how small, and just like, I don't know why this is making me like tear up so much. Oh my gosh. Anyway, so I really, really enjoyed these, and I really think you should read them because they're great. Also, you should make that empanada recipe. I think it made it like 14 empanadas, and I've eaten 2 because I ate another one in between filming the one that I ate and then talking about the rest of the book series because they're really good, and I've got a ton of leftovers that I might have to eat these. But anyway, so that's the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you check out some more, either these books or check out some other Tessa Bailey books, because the few that I've read have been really good, and I'm definitely going to be reading more of her books in the future. But if you like this video, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe so you can see more videos, either more Treats and Tomes episodes in the future or any of my other videos. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye, guys.